After a disastrous season up and down the lineup, there is one player that we are actually not terribly concerned when we look ahead. We're going to tell you about the season that was for Filip Forsberg and why he may be the key to a Nashville bounce back season.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this Wednesday episode shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio and friends. I have a partner in crime.
You do, even several states away. I am Emma Lingan, and I'm the Nashville Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
That's right. I am in a secret location that's not secret at all. I'm in Buffalo, New York, getting ready for the NHL Combine. So it's just a little less festive behind me, Emma. I don't have my painting of me as a harlot in the background. So
or your Pekka jersey or anything like that.
Jersey. Yeah,
it's a little stark, but that's all right.
It is. My charming personality will have to light up the screen for anybody watching on YouTube. Best of luck. So Emma and I are in the process of looking back at the season that was and kind of doing some player evaluations. And look, we know last season it was painful. It was disappointing. It was not what we expected. But we are going to look ahead to plenty of players who took steps back, but we do want to pause and talk about a player that we really liked this season. We're going to talk about Filip Forsberg and why we do not lose a lot of sleep over what is to come for him. We are also going to take a look at another veteran player whose future may have us feeling a lot of pressure, even when it comes to the very first puck drop of the season. So, Emma, we are going to kick it off with Filip Forsberg. I'm in Buffalo, but I've spent some time in northwestern Pennsylvania with my family and, of course, visited my church where I grew up, the oldest Swedish Lutheran church east of the Mississippi. Came away with some more Swedish hymnals. One can never have enough. So I'm very primed for this episode. The Swede in me is all set to talk about Phil. So this season, Filip Forsberg played all 82 games. That is of note. 31 goals, 45 assists, 76 points. His 82-game career average is 33 goals, 38 assists, 72 points. So just a couple goals under his career average, but 72 points this season, Emma. I think because the season in its entirety was such a disappointment, we tend to look at all of these players' seasons as just abject failure. But I think Filip Forsberg might be the bright spot.
I definitely think so. I mean, he did have a quietly good season. Not a great season, but a good season. And honestly, a good season is a great season after what we just had to endure for the last 84 years. But
oh my gosh.
I think that, you mentioned it, but I do want to kind of hammer the point home. The fact that he stayed healthy the entire season and has now done that for 2 seasons in a row. Even last year, a little touch and go with the skate and the foot and the injury that kept him from practicing.
When we saw it.
Oh, it was disgusting. But
awful.
Kept him from practicing, didn't keep him from playing and scoring goals. So cool. But I think that had been an issue for him earlier in his career. Not saying that it won't ever be an issue again in the future, but he did have a problem staying healthy. He has now stayed healthy for 2 straight seasons. That's a really good sign. It allows him to get consistency, get in a groove. Not that anyone got in any sort of groove this year. I think it's funny too, because now I can't even remember. He had the season or the longest goal scoring drought of his career happened this season, and I now can't remember how many games it was, but it was like it was becoming a thing where it was like every
Yeah.
time go into the locker room, I'm like, I don't want to look at him because I know he doesn't want to talk about it. So like,
Mm.
but I mean, he was still finding other ways to contribute. Of course, he was, still getting assists and still, playing a good two-way game, but people, of course, were focused on, oh my gosh, Filip Forsberg is broken. He's not scoring goals anymore. And even with that, he still had a 30-goal season. And
Yeah.
he still did, again, good, not great. And that's why I'm really not concerned about him going into next year.
Yeah. And I think part of people maybe underestimating his performance last season is the season was a hot mess for, just it was just such an abject failure. But he also was coming off of that franchise record-setting season where he had, like, I think 48 goals and just such high numbers. He was at the All-Star game, and everybody at the All-Star game that didn't follow the Predators was like, "Oh, who is the amazing hockey player with the mustache?" And we're all saying, "Yeah, no, that's just a Tuesday. What you're seeing at the All-Star game, that's just Tuesday practice for Filip Forsberg." So I think it just makes the disparity between, his record-setting season and last season seems so much wider than it really was. Like it looked like Filip Forsberg had a worse year than what he did. And I think we need to take a minute and say, okay, no, wait a minute. Here's a guy who struggled. And I think he was one of the players that at times we saw adopt that I'm going to put the team on my back and just take over and will it to happen, and I'm going to make it happen, and it didn't happen. There was nobody that made that work, and you saw Forsberg try to do that. And so I think seeing that in him, having the disparity in numbers from one season to the next, and then having overall last season be such a failure, it's very easy to overlook the fact that, like, no, this was a good season. Wasn't great, but it was a good season for Filip Forsberg. Y'all, can you imagine where we would be if Filip Forsberg hadn't scored 30 goals? Like, take a minute. There's not very many steps down we could have gone, but it could have been worse.
We
Yeah.
might have still been at rock bottom. We just might have bounced another time or two. It could have been worse.
That's right.
Maybe.
More ripples in the water, as the rock
Yeah.
went. When you look at the roster that we're likely to see next season, Emma, where does Forsberg rank for you when it comes to players that you think are going to get back to a level of production that you're like, yes, this is exactly what we need from them?
I mean, he's not one that I'm worried about at all. I mean, he's been one of the most consistent. Like, again, I just got done talking about how he didn't score a goal for however many games, but when I say consistent performers, I mean more season to season, especially when he
Yeah.
does stay healthy. Um and I again, we've seen him thrive the last 2 seasons now under Andrew Brunette. Of course, different circumstances this year with new guys coming in, and he's got new line mates every 5 minutes, and I mean, that would be enough to throw anyone off, but I think that he, is going to be looked to, as one of the leaders here. I mean, obviously he's part of the formal leadership group, but I mean, he's one of the more tenured players on the team. And, I think that he's a guy that, other guys are going to follow his lead. So I'm really not concerned about him.
Yes, it's so nice to do a podcast where we can look ahead and say, you know what, I feel pretty confident. I have a ballpark idea of what we're going to get from this guy, and it's not going to be painful. So I'm loving this so far. Coming up, we are going to talk about a role looking ahead for Filip Forsberg and why we think he may be the guy for Nashville next season. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Wonderful Pistachios. If you are looking for a snack that is both delicious and nutritious, friends, you have got to crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein. That's going to give you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they are packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I personally am a no shells variety kind of girl. When I stopped and got gas on my way to Buffalo, I grabbed them at the gas station. It's a perfect grab and go snack for a road trip or for working at your desk, or just when you know all of a sudden, okay, I need to get a little protein in me. But if you are somebody who loves cracking open every shell for that crunch, you need to get the in shell option. It is a classic favorite as well. So get snackin and get crackin with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, Emma, I know that hockey is a team sport, and clearly we learned last season that you can't just depend on one person to do it. But I have to tell you, for me, looking ahead, and we talked about this on a previous episode a little bit, Filip Forsberg is for me the guy. You know, talked a little bit about Steven Stamkos on yesterday's show, and I think people expected Stamkos to come in and be the guy, but I'm telling you, Nashville already has the guy. And I feel like Filip Forsberg, even if he's not having that 48 goal season, I think he is the reliable offensive producer for this team. And you put some people around him who maybe get more comfortable than they did last season with their line mates. And I think something really good could happen. I know that Filip Forsberg is technically, quote unquote, on the back nine of his career. You see my eye roll when we talk about, players and age and, falling off of a cliff. But this is a guy, like you mentioned, he's been healthy for a couple of seasons. He knows how to score goals. I think the key is going to be that consistent line mate from Forsberg next season. That is going to be what gets him back to being the guy for the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, especially if you can get him with a really skilled puck distributor. He has, I think, really blossomed a lot in the last couple seasons in the distributing facet of his game, where he shows that he's not just a finisher, he can be a playmaker as well. And that is great to see. But I think that you need, like, if kind of like you said, he's the guy. If the Nashville Predators are going to have a prayer at making the playoffs, at finishing maybe, I don't know, higher than 30th next year, you need Filip Forsberg to be scoring goals.
Yeah.
You need him to, more so than, like, we talked about this I think on Monday's show. I don't know. They all kind of run together now. But when we talked about Ryan O'Reilly, we talked about how his production was down, and it said, yes, but he's not the one whose production, like, you shouldn't need Ryan O'Reilly to be the one scoring all of your goals. You need Filip Forsberg to be the one scoring the goals. And then, yes, a Stamkos and a Marchessault now and again would be lovely as well. But I think that, as Forsberg goes, so go the Predators. And I think that is where, that's his impact and on, how important he is to this team.
Yeah, he is the offensive thermostat for the Nashville Predators. And I think part of what happened last season when you added Marchessault and Stamkos is people were like, oh, wait, who's going to set the offensive temperature for the team? And it needed to always still be Forsberg. And I understand why the dynamics of figuring all of that out with the line blending and all of that, it didn't materialize. But I think that's where you have to land. Like, Forsberg is your thermostat offensively. The other guys maybe can score as many goals as Forsberg, maybe, but Forsberg is the guy for me. But I agree with you. He's got to play with a top playmaker. So who is that? Like, is that going to be Stamkos playing center? Because I just, you know, Forsberg can make he's the guy that makes other people better. But I'm like, does Nashville have somebody? Like, is Fedor Svechkov ready to dish the puck to Filip Forsberg? I don't think we're there yet. So it's like put him with Ryan O'Reilly, or if Steven Stamkos is going to play center, that's what you do. But what I think is so important next season about Forsberg is who the other guy on the line is. I loved Zachary Leroux playing with Filip Forsberg. You have kind of this spicy guy. And look, here's what I will tell you. Filip Forsberg, lovely mustache, presents himself very well, a little quiet and soft spoken. But that dude, he's a little bit like me, where I think he's cool until he's not, and then he's feral. And he's like that on the ice. Like, I think people forget that he can be the guy that goes and gets the puck. He doesn't mind contact. He is freakishly strong. But I loved him with Zach LaRue because I feel like you got some toughness from Zach LaRue, some puck hunting, but it also just automatically elevates a young player's game. And that is what I want to see from Forsberg. Give Filip Forsberg a quality playmaker with him, and then maybe a young guy who is going to have to play at an elevated level if you're going to keep up with Forsberg. I'm here for that.
Yeah, I'm willing to be a little bit more flexible on who the other winger is, I think. But to me, the biggest piece of that is you got to put Filip Forsberg back with Ryan O'Reilly and leave those two together.
Can we just?
Because Ryan O'Reilly is an extremely gifted playmaker. Like you said, Filip Forsberg, he is very skilled, but he is a true, like kind of a unicorn in the sense that he is the true power forward. He's big, he's strong, he's really skilled, he can score goals, he's a really good skater. Like he just does everything. But you shouldn't need him to do everything. I think that you need, I mean, we've seen how well he works with Ryan O'Reilly, and I understand the idea of wanting to give guys a chance like Fedor Svechkov or whoever you have coming up in the system. But at the end of the day, if you're Barry Trotz and, subsequently Andrew Brunette, and you are committed to this, we're still trying to win now thing, you have to put your most skilled playmaker with your most skilled goal scorer. And this is not the time to be like, just put Fedor Svechkov on the top line, see what happens. End of last season was absolutely the time.
Sure.
But
why not?
I just think that, to me, things really fell apart. O'Reilly kind of disappeared for me a little bit, not just offensively, because again, we just talked about that with the goal scoring, of course, but he was only noticeable to me down the stretch of last season. O'Reilly was only noticeable to me when he was making a mistake. And that's not good, because it was like he was taking a dumb penalty, and then he was going out back and pouring gasoline on himself afterwards and lighting a match.
It was terrible.
Yes, and so it's like for everyone involved, let's just not do that again, please. I don't know. I understand the idea of wanting to spread the wealth a little bit, but to me, Forsberg and O'Reilly have to be back together next year.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that works. It worked beautifully with Gus Nyquist, who, if you're just going to have to remember back, it seems like forever ago, but friends, it wasn't but this spring when he was still in a gold jersey. Those were the good old days. But you do need, I agree with you. I think you've got to keep those two together. If they have chemistry, you've got to build on that. How much more pressure will there be on Filip Forsberg if Jonathan Marchessault doesn't return? Is that going to make a big difference, do you think, for Forsberg?
No, not really. I mean, first of all, I think Marchessault is going to return. Like, if I'm just being realistic, I think that's what's going to happen. But I mean, I think of all the forwards, there should be the least amount of pressure on Forsberg, because he's the one who's been consistent and he's done what is expected of him. I'd say there's more pressure on guys like Stamkos, like Marchessault, younger guys who are playing with them, guys like O'Reilly, maybe to kind of bounce back. I wouldn't hate seeing like a Michael Bunting on a line with Forsberg and O'Reilly. I would like to see how that works. And by see how it works, I mean for more than just one shift, Andrew Brunette. Let's like try to leave it out there. And then you know what? If after a few games it looks bad, then we move on. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my little mini rant about that. But
I feel like we could do a whole episode or a week's episodes on that. And maybe
it may come to that point. It might come to that point. Buckle up, everybody.
Buckle up. You're going to want to tune in for that bad boy. I agree with you. I think we just need Filip Forsberg to just be the guy. He has been the guy for Nashville. And I don't mean that in any sort of high pressure way. I mean, just be Filip Forsberg, because him playing to his average or above average is plenty good enough for this team. And they need that. They need Filip Forsberg back. Coming up, we're going to talk about another veteran that we are very big fans of here at the Locked On Predators podcast, but he is going to need the team to have a big season, and it's going to have to start right away. We're going to tell you what we expect and what we want to see from this team when it comes to Colton Sissons. All right, Emma, I want to fondly take a moment and look back at last year's player reviews when I want to emphasize you so eloquently and beautifully nicknamed him Mr. Potato Head.
Listen, it makes sense in my head. Okay.
It was great. It was great. You fleshed it out beautifully. And for those of you who may have missed that, it's because Colton Sissons is the potato. And you can stick an arm here and an eyeball here and a mustache here and a hat here. And it doesn't matter because he's still Mr. Potato Head. That is Colton Sissons. He is the secret sauce on the Big Mac for the Nashville Predators. And that is a hill I will die on. Like, he is Mr. Potato Head. He is the Big Mac sauce. And that is why I have the most tremendous amount of angst when I think about Colton Sissons and next season, Emma. Last season, just looking back, he had 7 goals, 14 assists. His career average is about 11 goals, 15 assists. So, down maybe a little bit of production, but here's the thing. Colton Sissons is so much more than numbers. He is when it all goes down, when it all falls apart, Colton Sissons is the one that's going to put it back together. He's like the mom. Like, when everybody gets sick and the whole family has the flu, and even the mom, but it's still the mom that's like giving the medication and cleaning up the puke and all that stuff. Colton Sissons is the puke cleaner upper, friends. He does all the dirty work. And this team is not the same team without him. And this is why, Emma, I lose sleep over what the Nashville Predators do from the start of the season until the trade deadline, because sweet baby Rays, what are we going to do at the trade deadline if this team is out of contention, because teams are going to come calling for Colton Sissons? It's going to be horrible.
Well, and we hear his name in around the trade deadline every blessed year because he is on a very affordable contract, but 2.75, 2.5, something like that. He's making less than $3 million a year, which for what he does is a massive
highway
steal.
robbery, friends.
Absolutely. And he doesn't have trade protection in his contract. So every year around the trade deadline, what are teams looking for? Teams that are in contention, they're looking for depth forwards who are reliable and who can score goals, but also can just kind of be like spot starters and just fill gaps and really shore up your forward depth. That is Colton Sissons to a T, and he's very affordable. So every year we hear his name come up in these conversations. Every year it comes up, I'm still like, they're not trading him. I know they're not trading him because like he's always had multiple years left on his contract. And it's like, okay, yeah, he's affordable, but you know who else that appeals to? The Nashville Predators. So they're not going to get rid of him. This year,
Emma,
we're entering the final year of his contract, and that's where things change, because now it's like, again, we saw this with like Gus Nyquist, for example. If the Predators were in contention by the time the deadline rolled around, Gus Nyquist would have finished the season with the team.
Yep.
Absolutely would
100%.
have. Colton Sissons, same deal. I worry because he is an extremely valuable asset when it comes to like a deadline, an in-season deadline trade for a contender. He's durable, he's reliable,
Yes.
he's exactly what you want. So it's like if I'm, probably freaking Florida again next year because they just won't go away. Like that's the kind of guy that I want if I'm looking to add depth on, on my forward group. So I just think that I'm fully confident that with the impact he has and what he means to this team and his relationship with Andrew Brunette, his relationship with Barry Trotz, I fully believe that if this team is doing well, they're not going
Mm-hmm.
to trade him. I also fully believe that if the team is out of the race and teams come calling, I trust that Barry Trotz will treat Colton Sissons like a Ryan O'Reilly in
Yeah,
the
I wonder
sense
about
that
that. Yep.
you don't have trade protection, but we're going to treat you like you do, which some people may or may not agree with. I think that you know he is that probably means that Barry Trotz is going to ask for an overpay, which no one is going to give you for half a season of Colton Sissons. It's just not going to happen. And or if he's not doing that, it could be like, hey, Colton, we got a trade request. Do you want to go to Buffalo? And and that's when he kind of has the final sign off. That is how
Yeah.
I feel like this will go. But either way, like at the end of the day, it is still Barry Trotz's decision and it is a business and you have to do what's good for the business. And if the Predators are in 30th place again next year, it is simply bad business. If someone is actually offering you something for one of your assets, it is just bad business not to take it. So
Yeah.
I understand it on both sides, but again, every year people always want to talk about,
Every year.
oh, Colton Sissons, is he getting traded? And every year I'm like, no, no. And people always are like in disbelief. They're like, really? You're not worried? I'm like, not even a little bit. This year, a little bit.
Yeah. It used to be, it was a twofer. It was Colton Sissons. They're always talking about Colton Sissons at the trade deadline or Dante Fabro. But Barry Trotz got the last laugh because he's like, oh, I'm not trading Dante Fabro. No, no, friends. If you want him, you have to go get him off waivers.
Crawl for
Oh,
him.
friends.
Yeah. I just
Friends. I can't even. Look, and if the Nashville Predators are in 30th at the trade deadline, Emma and I will also be drinking profusely on every episode next season. So tune in for that. Like,
we might
I don't even
quit.
know what to say. I don't even know
Yeah.
what to say about that. I don't even know what to say. But here is my nightmare scenario. My nightmare scenario is not that the Predators fail and we lose Stamkos or Marchessault. My nightmare scenario is the Predators start the season off and can't get it together, and Barry Trotz goes, "Oh crap, I have to make a coaching change," and he makes a coaching change, but they don't get it together. And then at the trade deadline, they lose Colton Sissons. And this is why that is my nightmare scenario instead of Steven Stamkos or Jonathan Marchessault. It is because Colton Sissons is one of the guys that you want if you turn and pivot and rebuild. If they turn and pivot and rebuild, Stamkos is gone. Marchessault, see ya. He's out of here. Colton Sissons is one of the guys that you would want as a veteran in your locker room for a rebuild, a pivot. And my nightmare scenario is bad start, coaching change, still can't get it together. We'll see you, Mr. Potato Head. I got a problem with that. Nightmares, the stuff of nightmares, friends.
Yep. For sure.
And
That's why I'm worried. For the first time ever,
mhm.
I am worried that Colton Sissons may not finish the season on the Nashville Predators. That
And yeah, and he is one of those ones where I'm like, dude, I know you're right about the business. Trotz would be nuts not to get something for him if the Preds are out of contention. But also, this is one of those players that I'm like, no, I would really like him to retire a Predator. And I know that's feelings and feelings are like farts and business is more important. But nightmare scenario, Colton Sissons is gone at the trade deadline. And friends, that is not far-fetched. Not far-fetched. Super. On that note, oh, Emma, it has been very interesting dancing through these player evaluations, especially trying to look forward. It is like looking through mud to see what we think we may get from these players next season. But again, I do think we know what to expect from Filip Forsberg, and hopefully we will get a much better start from the team and see a scenario where Colton Sissons is, again, a long-term piece for the Predators. We're going to see what happens. We are going to continue these kind of player look backs. We're going to chunk some together. We're going to be taking a look at some of the young guys, and we're going to be taking a look at some of the injured guys. What can we expect from these guys next season as well? So make sure you stay tuned this week as we cover all of that. But before we log off today, Emma, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, and you can find my work at the Hockey News, and not in Buffalo, which is where the good people can find you. I'm here in Nashville.
Right. That's right. So you can find me in Buffalo getting ready for the NHL Combine this weekend. You can also find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. Let me just tell you, I am most nervous about this Combine thing. I'm excited to talk to the prospects, but Emma, if somebody boots during the workout sessions, I'm not going to be a fan. Not a fan, friends.
The one time I went, there was no booting. So
okay.
Fingers crossed for.
Let me tell you, I was the parent who did broken bones and blood. I did not do barf. So we'll keep you all posted on that next Monday. We'll let you know how I held up and how they held up as well. That's going to do it for today's episode on the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks again so much for making us your first listen of the day. We're going to be back tomorrow with an all new episode. We will see you then.